Hello and welcome to today's content, which will be on Elsirelle and her summer version. And yeah, basically since she has been released and the information has been out, after doing an analysis, I basically made the video. And yeah, without further ado, let's begin. For her abilities, which is the main job Scholar, as a base unit, she's going to have Magic Orb, Law of Preservation, Tidal Calling, and then Law of Geoabsorption, Devitalizing Glint, and Dreamy Typhoon, which is going to be her limit break. Keep in mind, all of these abilities have cast time except for Devitalizing Glint, if it is activated or like buffed, enhanced by the passive Focused Knowledge. Also, the LB itself does not have a cast time as well, but everything else here in the base unit does. Now in EX upgrades, Law of Geoabsorption now turns into Law of Geo-Assimilation, which the range height actually increases from 1 to 2, which significantly helps in placing down abilities, and it reduces the chances of reaction abilities by 100%, which we kind of expected that. It's going to be kind of predicted that way. And yeah, so that's going to be very nice. It still does have cast time even though the EX upgrade is there, but it still has the additional effects, which are actually still pretty good. And then lastly, her EX job ability level when she's 120 or her job level is 25, and it'd be very important to have it in my opinion, is that she gets her physical barrier for 30% and gets protect, which is another 25% added onto it for 3 turns, and the barrier is for 3 times, so keep that in mind. Also, it's kind of sad to say it's not 50% for the physical damage taken, it is 30%. This is huge because of how it works in terms of damage mitigation. It's separated, or like it's hard to explain, but since it's not 50%, it's only 30%, it's a little bit disappointing, but it still gives you protect and the barrier itself, so it's not bad. Now for sub-jobs, for the Scholar sub-job, it's going to have the traditional Scholar sub-job abilities, Law of Speed Reading and Law of Disarmament. From here we have the Paladin sub-job, which most importantly, the only thing you really need to look here is going to be Immortal Spirit. Very, very, very effective and strong if you're able to use it in a battle. After that, we have her sub-job, which I would recommend if you're not using the Paladin sub-job, which will be the Kododama sub-job. Not only does she get nimble movement, she gets some good single target abilities, and she also has Bursting Light here. Very nice to have in terms of just AoE damage and utility. Like, if you're not using Paladin sub-job, you should be using Kododama sub-job. Here we are for resistances and passives. For resistances to damage types, she is a 0% to slash, 15% to pierce, 5% to strike, 10% to missile, -5% to magic attack types. So as you can see, overall she actually has pretty good resistances despite having 0% to slash and -5% to magic. I'll explain why in a little bit. She has 0% AoE and 0% single target, unfortunately. However, at level 120 with her master ability included, she has 14 defense and 2 spirit as a base amount. That 14 defense is pretty significant. Her resistances to statuses, luckily she has 50% to stop, 50% to confusion, and 10% to sleep. I will say here, 2 things that she missing because she's a mage. No resistance to silence is a little bit concerning, especially if we get a lot more silence related abilities, and she's still susceptible to disable quite easily, so just be wary of that. Her master ability, she's going to have the classic mono water element. She gains a little bit of magic for herself, which is up to 15%, and she gets another additional fire resistance 10%. If you already thought that no fire unit's going to have a good time against her, this kind of further solidifies it in terms of pressuring her in terms of damage. She'll just have, she's literally just going to shrug off any damage she takes from them. Anyways, moving on. She has 3 move, 1 jump. She is a 90 cost unit. For her passives, I will say hands down period, you should have this on at all times, does not matter. It's going to be Knowledge Reserves or Focused Knowledge, which is her EX upgrade of it. Not only is the EX upgrade of it going to further reduce her activation time for cast times, she also gains the Spirit Penetration, which is the only source of Spirit Penetration she is able to have in terms of her kit overall without using items or like an ability, TMR, etc. So yeah, keep that in mind. It also upgrades her ability of Devitalizing Glint, which is pretty good. The next recommended passive I could say would either be the Magic Up if you just want to deal like a lot more damage, or Fire Spirit's Blessing if you want to go kind of more for the bruiser type / survival, because her weakness is obviously going to be magic damage. So yeah, she has options for those. Now the Niche and Flex. And here's why I did not put these in the recommended. Scholarly Intuition can increase your accuracy and you get defense. My reasoning here is that especially once Cloud comes out, who happens to have 60% defense penetration, so defense in general is not going to help you too much, is that she already has a physical barrier and protect. You're mitigating enough damage already from physical damage, in my opinion. Unless they have a barrier break and or they have a really strong hit in terms of elements, but yeah. That's why I don't think it's worth stacking that stat in particular. Additionally, the 20 accuracy is not bad. However, she does have a 100% hit ability on her limit break and hits very hard, and she can have a 100% hit ability on her Kotodama subjob. So this is why I put it for niche and flex. It can still do good for you if you do use of the build, but this is my reasoning on it. And for Holy Knight's protection, defense, and then HP up, honestly, this almost made the recommended list for the HP up specifically because she actually has one of the highest HPs in general for mages in general. She even has higher base HP than Helena, Black Robed Helena, which is one of the highest HPs for mages in general. So yeah, that's one thing to consider. As I said, defense situation, like similarly, a lot of people are running like close to like 40% lately, or they have defense lowering abilities. So defense right now is not too big unless you're able to stack it really high. But because she has a base of 14 and she already has a physical barrier and protect, you don't really need to stack up her defense too high, as of right now at least. That's why I put it in niche and flex. Now for her reaction abilities, she has reactive force from the Scholar subjob, she has Paladin's Guard from the Paladin subjob, and Steel Ephemeral Form from the Kotodama subjob. I would highly recommend using the Steel Ephemeral Form if you want to reduce damage. Keep in mind it's only 20% chance to happen, but if you want a little bit more consistency or like some damage, I would pick the reactive force because it is a base of 30% chance of happening. So it will happen or proc more often than Steel Ephemeral Form. So here we are for Elsirelle's rating out of 5. Ultimately, after like huge consideration, I really thought about putting her at 4.5 out of 5, but I just did a lot of thinking. In the end, I do give her a 4 out of 5. I do not believe she is a most pull unit. I do believe she is a strong unit with a few caveats, however. So yeah, let's look at the pros first. So first off, she's able to have a base of 14 defense and 2 spirit, which is kind of funny because despite her having a bad resistance to magic attack types, she has 2 spirit and has access to a spirit's passive that can boost it even further. So she's not necessarily like super weak to magic, but she will be if you do not build her properly. As I said before, she has one of the highest HPs for a magic caster. She also has high magic and she has decent agility, so she is going to be pretty good in just stats alone. You can see why she's a 90 cost unit in terms of her stats in general. She is physically bulky due to her kit and variety of subjobs, as well as good resistances overall. As you saw, she has a nothing negative outside of magic, especially for like physical damage stuff. She will definitely be good into most physical matchups. Her limit break is a huge AoE, 100% guarantee hit, which is insanely good, especially against evasion units, as well as just being consistent enough that it's an insta cast. There is no cast time on it, so 100% hit. It's a huge AoE, and it's insta cast. Very nice to have at like the whim of your fingers. She has access to a physical barrier and protect on the main job, while she can also get Immortal Spirit on a sub job. So keep that in mind. That means she has potentially a lot of like mitigation to like prevent her from dying very quickly. She's able to deal both high strike and magic attack types for magic damage. She definitely can like one-shot units if they are not properly built against her and or they're not mitigating damage in general from her. She has huge and strong AoE attacks. She does have very weak single target hits outside of her sub jobs, but her AoE abilities are all nothing to scoff at. It's pretty good. Also, while she does have cast time, she does have cast time reduction on her passive for an extremely large amount. It's actually larger than Helena's and Yuna's, even if they use their cast time reduction abilities. So she actually kind of wins in that department for cast time. It's not going to be like insta-cast, but it will be insanely good and favored towards her most of the time. She can reduce healing done, and she can prevent reaction abilities from even activating. So like reflex, speed, reflex, like counter damage, she can basically nullify those with her ability of geo assimilation. So that's something to really consider. She has a base of 40% spirit penetration due to her passive, which is very nice, especially with people if they're just going to stack spirit up very high but not any of their like resistances. She could definitely pierce right through it. She's able to use nimble movement on her sub job from the Kododama. It's going to be very good for high mobility if you want to use that. Just keep in mind though that you have to choose between the Paladin sub job and or Kododama sub job if you want their utility. She's also resistant to stop, which is very nice, and she has a base resistance of 30% fire resistance. If it wasn't already like enough that she's a water unit, fire units in general will have a hard time both mitigating damage from her as well as dealing any damage to her, because she just has such a good base advantage against them already. Like, it's further, like, this is the fire resistance before they have their damage even further reduced if they're a fire type done against her due to elemental advantage. So she's already going to be very good into those matchups. Now moving on to the cons and why she did not make the point of possibility of 4.5 out of 5, kind of like Killfake can in the future, and why she's kind of just a 4 out of 5 now. She might even lower down to 3.5 out of 5 later, but right now I see her as max a 4 out of 5 potential. And let's talk about it. So first off, she has a low base spirit. Even though she's weak to magic attack types, she does have a spirit passive if you want to use it, but if you don't use the passive, there's no point why we're even discussing this. If you're not using that passive and it's not a mandatory one, then it's mostly optional. If you don't have it, you're going to be weak to magic. If you do have it, you'll be a little bit more survivability against it. Next part. Siren 3-star is not out just yet. What this means is that she is missing out on 25 water, as well as being way faster to agility, as well as keeping her magic attack stat on no, not magic attack, but magic stat on an Esper, and she's missing 25% slash resistance. There is a reason why she has 0% base slash resistance as a magic caster, and why Siren is there once it's 3-star, that she can get 25% slash resistance and the magic damage from it. So that's why, because we don't have Siren 3-star out right now, she has that disadvantage. So it's really feels like Gumi's kind of like not giving her her full potential as a unit, even though we do have a few units that are about to literally destroy her career very soon. I am kind of disappointed in why that happened and why Siren 3-star is not out. If anything, it should have released today even with her release. So yeah, I don't know. Next part, she has no attack type penetrations in any scenario where strike and or magic are resisted. What this means is that she has to use items or other abilities if those are resisted. She's gonna have a hard time. For example, just an example, if they had very high magic attack resistance as well as strike attack resistance, all her damage is going to be mitigated. She's going to have a very hard time dealing any type of relevant damage if it's resisted to a high percentage. So just keep that in mind. So for example, Whisperer actually would be a very good magic tank into her, just because of her already base high strike and magic attack resistances. Without items or TMRs, Elsirelle sadly will kind of struggle there because she does not have any attack type penetration. Moving on, her law of safeguarding the barrier with Protect is only 30%. It's not 50%, despite Mua, who is her basically the magic barrier counterpart to her. Mua has a 50% reduction, has a shell, and has a regen benefit. Why is Elsirelle's like half-assed compared to hers? Like, excuse my language, but why is it not like up there at the same level as Mua's? It doesn't make sense. We also have a lot more physical damage barrier breaks compared to who can break a magic barrier in one go. We have a significant less amount, so it really doesn't make sense why she has like, I know her barrier is really good just because you get the dual effects, but why is it that it's half-assed compared to Mua's dual effects of a magic barrier? It makes me a little upset, so that's why I don't know what to say to it. Next up though is that she's also vulnerable to Disable and Silence. Disable and Silence are basically going to be the exact same thing for her in particular because she is also a magic caster, and it's just something to think about. Her strongest moves are locked to magic attack types, which is going to be the 220% from, I believe, Devitalizing Glint. And she does have a max of 3 casts for her strike magic damage. For example, if you do not kill your opponents within the 3 strike casts and they have high magic attack resistance, she's gonna have a very bad time after that. So just keep that in mind. She is limited on her casts for 3, which is not, I mean, 3 is plenty. Like maybe you only need 1 or 2 and you can finish the job, but just keep in mind once she runs out of her Geo of Assimilation or Absorption, she is going to be locked to only magic attack type damage for any relevancy. Next up is that her 100% hit ability is going to be locked to her Limit Break and or Kododama sub. It is possible, especially depending on like the map layout, that if she does Limit Break only the tank and the evasion unit is kind of off to the side and doesn't get hit, there's her 100% hit ability, it's gone. Now if it's like a smaller map or like units are going to be bunched up more close together, this is perfect for her then. Her Limit Break is going to destroy the evasion unit, but yeah. In the situation where like it hits only the tank because the tank is kind of like just running up in your face, she doesn't have much to usage of her reliability as an evasion killer, so just keep that in mind. Now, her vision card setup also has obvious caveats and kind of like weaknesses and limitations to like kind of maximize the benefits for synergy. As you can also see if you browse Reddit, possibly, we found out that a few vision cards that could have possibly gave her a benefit for her summer version does not give her any extra benefits, so it's kind of sad to see not. And maybe it might get updated in the future, but right now since we don't have it, this is going to be what I'm going to be saying for it. So there's obviously going to be limitations and you have to invest very hard for her to get her to do what you want. And lastly, Charlotte is already out, who is literally a hard counter against her. I don't say this lightly unless it's really true, but it is a hard counter against her. Element, and just she has a lot of spirit. Even with 40% spirit penetration, Charlotte is still super tanky against magic in general. And we have Cloud coming out soon? Question mark? I said question mark because it's Gumi. They can always delay his release or anything just cause, and just release FF7 whenever they want. But Cloud not only is a lightning unit, he is a slasher. He also has non-attributed type, which he literally can just do just lightning damage, kind of like 9S. It doesn't need attack type. And he also has missile, if he wanted to do like barrage spam. And he has a barrier break that hits very hard. So I know most of us already know what Gumi's doing here. It's kind of like a quick cash grab, or like if you want to use her right now, because Elsirelle actually right now in the meta is actually super strong if you use her right now, because especially against King Monta and Dwayne, who both have negative base strike resistance, and they mostly are kind of just stacking up magic attack resistance instead of like strike, because putting up strike is very, very difficult in general to get up right now. So yeah, she would actually be very effective against those two in general. You do have to keep in mind though, because Elsirelle is weak to magic attack types, that means she can possibly be one shot completely by Helena. Just keep that in mind. Now her TMR chase rating, I give it a 3 out of 5 with a question mark, because until I like get the interaction done with it, I cannot fully give a good rating on it, so that's why I put a question mark. So just take it with a grain of salt. Her TMR is a blessed ribbon. The type is accessory, 280 HP, which is Defense is 10, which is pretty good, and magic 35. It's not enough to like really replace any items for like damage. But yeah, the most important part is going to be the effect or active, which is the beachside rejuvenation. And what the effects are is that it's going to restore your HP up to the same potency as Curaga for allies. As you can see, it only has one cast, and it does have a ranged cast, and it has no cast time. And the reason why I want to know is if this is actually going to be very good or very bad. Obviously, we know healing is based off like healing power, faith, all that stuff. But I want to know if the AI will actually bother to use it when you actually need it. Kind of like Smile Practice in particular for like Yuna or like some of the healer support AIs. Does this significantly change their AI to use it when you need it, or will they basically almost never use it because there's not good AI on it? So for now, I give it a 3 out of 5. If you want to experiment with it or you think it might have potential, go for it. Otherwise, I don't think it's worth chasing completely. And I would only really recommend TMR chasing if it's at least a 4 out of 5. So right now, it's kind of iffy. But yeah, I hope this kind of makes sense on why I gave Elsirelle a 4 out of 5 and why she can't break into the 4.5 or 5 out of 5 unit currently. She is very strong, but her longevity in future and like soon, especially with like Cloud maybe possibly coming out soon, it's kind of iffy on what she can do right in the future. Obviously right now she'll be very good, but yeah, she's limited mostly by her potential in terms of itemization and like vision cards right now. So yeah. And here we are at the last slide for Elsirelle. What my example setup would be for Elsirelle. Specifically, if Victora was EX, or I mean, she doesn't even have to be EX, screw it. Just she'll just be here because she can just poke. She's gonna be using thanks for the votes vision card for the 35 water attack. Mua's gonna be here specifically with the Solidus vision card to give further slash resistance to everyone. And then the main carry is gonna be Elsirelle. Not only can Mua kind of like limit break people and then lower their water resistance, Elsirelle can easily finish them off with the geo geo absorption or assimilation. It'll be insanely good of a combo. You do have to keep in mind, however, that because there's no tank in this situation, you really have to delete your enemies before they delete you. So this is why this build is like this. So obviously Elsirelle would be using the Lunar Tome. That's her book. Unfortunately for like scholars and such, for the books and tomes, you get more damage, but it does not have the flexibility of staffs like the Cypress Pile, which has magic attack resistance penetration. The Lunar Tome is just gonna be like a stat stick for damage, unfortunately. The silver rimmed glasses or spectacles are here for further spirit penetration for 60%. Obviously, is to kind of like counteract other mages as well, because mages usually are gonna be using like spirit barrier, like robes in general. This is gonna further help deal more damage. And then we have summer kill phase TMR. The reason why for this, and I actually tested this before recording, if she uses her barrier, the law of safeguarding, I believe, for the protect and the physical barrier, she can use this TMR as well to further add on shell. And I mean, if you had a possible third turn, which is very rare, a third turn debuff, if she also puts mortal guts or like mortal spirit on herself too, that is protect shell for 2 to 3 turns with the physical barrier, and you have re-raise, which, well, not re-raise, but guts, like immortal spirit. So it's something to consider. I really think since you can combine all those 3 together, it's very strong, but the chances of getting 3 buffs in like a 3 buff turn order is very rare. Most of the time it's either 1 or 2 at max, so yeah, getting 3 is gonna be very, very rare. After that, we do have this Esper for Siren, specifically once Siren is 3-star. Please, it should be out like already or soon. Like, it's very effective, especially for Elsirelle. And then we have Guidance of the Stars, specifically for Elsirelle, not only to further increase her spirit, magic, but also just her damage in general. So this team is literally going to be focusing on mitigating slash type damage, as well as trying to delete their enemies as fast as possible. Future stuff to consider: 3-star Siren. I say it over and over again, it has to come out for her so that she can make full use of that Esper with no like regrets or like not too many negatives. It's one of the best benefits for her in general. After that, we do have the Brooch from Garvel's TMR. Because she is locked to one ability for strike and then everything else is magic attack type, it is possible that his TMR can further help her deal like significant damage because of the penetration. And lastly is going to be because of meta and stuff, she has to watch out in the future for Cloud specifically, as well as Helena in general. Reason why: Helena is still one of the best, strongest magic DPS out there. It's very hard to mitigate damage from her. She can still delete people at a whim, especially if your Elsirelle does not have like good resistances against magic or spirit is not very high. She will get deleted by Helena. So yeah, overall, we come to the end of the video. As always, if you liked it, please leave a like and subscribe or comment. And yeah, if you pull for her, good luck. Don't be like me, who literally had to hit 40k Vizier to pull her, and I am very sad about that. Anyways, yeah, good luck on your pulls, and hope maybe this helps you like decide to pull her or not. Until the next video, peace out.